Welcome to the Inside View. I'm Ralph Franzulli, your host, and we are live from Studio 25 here in Little Falls. And I'm really happy to have with me today Mayor Kaufman. She's here to talk about her accomplishments in 2024 and what she's expecting and some nice things about 2025. Mayor, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Welcome
Good
on
to be here.
on a cold, snowy day.
Yes, indeed. It is definitely winter in upstate New York.
Now, that actually reminds me of something. Is the skating rink going to be open this year?
You know, you're like the 200th person that's asked that question in the last few days. Actually, yes, they started flooding it last night.
Oh,
So
terrific.
we're hoping for the end of next week. But weather has to cooperate, and the freezing of the ice and layers and whatnot has to take place. But yeah, we finally got some cold weather and some snow, so we're ready, almost ready to go.
That's great. Brings back some nice memories for me.
It does, me too.
So, looking back on your first year as mayor, has your perspective on the role of mayor changed at all?
Oh my, yes. uh, I guess when you're coming in, you have ideas of what you want to do. When you get in, you look at, okay, the lay of the land, right? And you get to know what things that they're really experiencing and how some of these ideas pan out. Some of them don't pan out. It just depends on what you have to work with. And I was very fortunate. I have really good people to work with and very open to ideas and leading in a particular direction that I think will really help the city. So the support they have of the city is incredible. So I never get any pushback with regard to whatever's good for the city, right? Really dedicated people. But so I have it easy in some respects. But I had no idea that I knew we had financial problems and things like that to work on. Procedural, we had when I came in, we had we had the homeless issue, we had uh, drug issues. We still have some of those. We're still working through that. Homeless, not so much anymore. And the squatters living in people's houses, we're not experiencing that anymore. A lot of things, but mainly when you look at it, the depth of the problems that we needed to fix in order to stabilize and to go forward. Um, I thought it was more surface level. Now I realize we had to dig pretty deep.
Okay. All right.
But so it's very much like it is as being a CEO of any organization. Multiple layers, and you've got a lot of things you're working with, from personnel issues to financial issues to construction issues, you name it.
Okay. So, what was your biggest challenge looking back on it?
Well, I
Pick
think
one.
pick one. Well, the one that took my breath away was in May when Sarah, our treasurer, told me that July we're out of money and we have no ability to finance any short-term financing. Um, we had hobbled our way through February with pension plans not being paid for and negotiating that, and a couple of other loans that were due. And then this happened, and we tried everything, and everything was a roadblock. So I would say that was the biggest problem. The Department of State certainly came in and saved the day. Thank goodness they allowed us to take a payment that they would typically give us in December. We got it in June, at the end of June, and that allowed us to get through July, and where additional revenue would come in. So that was probably the biggest thing.
Okay.
To feel like you had no plan, no everything you looked at, there's just a roadblock.
So, what was your biggest accomplishment last year?
I would say surviving.
Okay. Well, that's pretty basic.
It's pretty basic. We did a lot of things in spite of the challenges that we had. We had so many huge things thrown at us every single month to fix. And working with next to nothing as far as money is concerned. But we did accomplish the big thing that I wanted to do, and that was the 11 items that the state comptroller's report had indicated in two different reports, saying that they didn't complete them. And I think they had 4 years to even tackle one, and 0 were done. So, from my perspective, that was my mission. And we actually have accomplished 11 of them, and or 10 of them. And the 11th one is with regard to the golf course. And we're hoping to be able to put that before the council next month.
And what does that entail?
The golf course, years ago, 1980, had been separated out of the general budget. And for reasons of, at that time, they've heard a couple of different stories, but at that time, they were making pretty good money. And so when they were trying to balance the general fund, they would grab out whatever revenue was in there and put it toward general city expenses, right? Because it's a city property. Well, they never got a chance to buy mowers and the things they needed to. They weren't not getting any love, I'll put it that way. So they were making a bunch of money. And so they were upset. And so they wanted to pull away. Now they've been stabilized for several months, or several years rather. And we've got a really good team there. Nick Reagan is doing a great job as far as membership, and it's growing. And made money last year. So, I mean, it's in a position that I think we could maybe do something about it. The having it as a separate item is a red flag when auditors come through, and they say, "Why do you have that separated out of your regular budget?" And then they want to audit it right immediately. And so it's one of those things that's kind of an oddity that really should be probably pulled back in under the general budget.
Well, it was when it was built. It was supposed to be self-sustaining.
It is.
Which meant they probably wanted financial visibility. Maybe that's why they kept it separate.
Initially, they didn't, but the financial visibility and the sustainability happens with all departments. You have a budget, and you have to live by the budget,
Right.
and so there's no wiggle room with that. And if something you have a shortfall, that's where the general fund comes in handy.
Well, it's an important asset. I'm glad to see it's doing better.
Yeah, it is. It really is doing well.
Let's talk about a couple other things that were revealed last year, including the $2.8 million deficit. What sort of progress have you made on that score?
Well, it's 2.7.
2.7. Okay. So it's gone down 100,000.
So we didn't add to it. We subtracted a little bit. We're still in a situation where we need help. We are actually, I would say we stabilized and we have some really good procedures and plans in how we handle things, from ordering to you name it, expenses, everything is looked at. So all of the things that we did last year really helped us and proved to us that we can manage this. But digging into old debt right now is not something that we're able to do. We have a revenue deficit, and that's our biggest problem. We don't have an expense crisis. It is in revenue. We have our revenue with taxpayer property tax, with sales tax that we get, covers about a third of what we need to run the city. And we're running as lean as we possibly can with people and still deliver services. So my take on it is, okay, what can we do to grow revenue? Growing revenue is possible, and we're doing it through shared services. That's the other bucket that we're working with, but it takes time. And so we're still looking at working with the state of New York with their deficit financing this year. And that's kind of a process. We're going through it right now. We're pulling all our financials. We just got our financials, the draft form, a couple of days ago. So we're looking at that. And essentially what we will do in July is we're going to, our financial advisors that we work with for bonds and things like bands, things like that. We're going to take all of the bands. Bands are short-term bonds, right? And so you take those out on a temporary basis thinking, okay, once the project gets finished or whatever, and I know exactly how much it is, I will move it into a permanent bond. So stretch it out over a few years.
Mhm.
Most of the bands you are due in a year or a couple of years, and so you end up that's always a hit on your cash flow, and that's where we were last year. So consolidating all those in July will make a big difference as far as our short-term debt. Working with the state on deficit financing will give us cushion with things like the pension plan that we've been paying off, that type of loan, anything for operating deficit that we have. We usually have been running over the last few years at about a 3,000 or 3 million rather deficit between revenue and expenses. So, that sort of thing makes a huge difference in where do we get the revenue. It's like I say, it's been a problem for many years that no one has really addressed the revenue deficiency, and it keeps getting worse and worse. So that's my primary focus. I've been collaborating with our particular region here. We have about 10 communities, municipalities that are looking at working with us on shared services of some sort. The Most of the shared services, they're small contracts, they're not huge contracts, maybe 50, 75,000 a year. When you get to water and sewer and delivering those things, then it can be up to $1 million a year, depending on the community and the size, things like that. So that's where the shared services really make a difference for the city and help offset where we are right now.
I just want to remind our viewers that they can ask questions by posting those questions on our page, and we will do our best to answer them. Just keep it clean, keep it civil. Thank you. You mentioned the pension. How much the pension money that we owe?
Mhm.
How much ground have you made up on that?
Well, we pay 30,000 a month, and so
Okay.
our payments are until 2028. So we've got a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, but there's a plan in place. That's a good thing.
So we've been doing that, and in addition, last year we were able to working through the plans that we had and really running a very tight ship. We were able to sock away 170,000 every month for the payment that's due next month in February. So we're really planning ahead months where before we had no visibility to that. So cash flow projections, I've talked about that before. That was probably one of the big things that helped last year. They had never had that before. And to me, it's like flying blind. You have to have cash flow projections. And now we're working on 3-year projections going out.
I think one of the biggest things you may have done was the change in the fiscal year to coincide with the
Yes.
collection of taxes.
That's another big one.
Straighten me out on this, because I always thought that in order to do that, you had to have a charter change, and a charter change required a referendum. There was no referendum. So how did this happen?
It was legally possible for us to do it with a resolution and public hearing and all, a local law. And the reason for that was it was a one-word change. And the one-word change was we're going to end our year in January. It changed from January to we're going to end our year in April. That was it. There was no structural change to the charter. And I think everybody felt like, oh, that's going to be just too complicated. When I looked at the issue, I looked at it from a back office bookkeeping situation. Before me, they were all looking at it, well, we've got to have the taxpayers, we've got to have them pay their bills in December instead of April. We've got to do this, we've got to do that. No, you don't. It's back office. Companies do it all the time. You align your budgeting, your end of the year with how your market is and what when your revenue comes in. And so what we did is we have right now we're in a short year. 2025 is only 4 months. And then we're going into 2026 fiscal year anyway, in May. That's a bookkeeping thing that we're doing. We're working with the comptroller's office as to how they want us to reflect that, because it's kind of an odd one. So 2026 will be our first fiscal year, and that will run from May 1st to April 31st. of the following year. So it's a little complex in the first year as we're making that change, but to the taxpayers, they don't know any difference. That they will pay their taxes. The taxes go out in late April, and they pay their taxes in May, and there's no change.
So this doesn't happen this year.
It
It starts next year.
well,
Did I hear you correctly?
it's actually happening this year because our 26 year will happen May 1st of 25.
Okay.
So you see, it could be confusing.
25/26.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we're really in the calendar year of 25.
And the beauty of it is that you get your biggest source of revenue the same time the new fiscal year starts.
Right. For many years, we've been taking a TAN out, to be able to run the first 4 months because we've been calendar year, right? And so we budget from, January 1st around to December. Well, we never have money by the time we get to January, February, March.
Right.
And so we take out this huge loan, which each time it depends on the amount, but it's 30 to 60,000. It's
And
not
so you're better organized, and you're
We're-
saving money at the same time,
right,
which is
right. And the plan should work, going forward. I think it's going to be a whole lot easier to manage, certainly budget.
speaking of budgets. Let's talk about the 24 budget.
Mhm.
Tell me about the successes and failures of that now that you've seen it for 1 year. What went right? What went wrong?
We actually, a couple of things, we didn't make as much in revenue that I was hoping that we would. We had, the fire department, for instance, the transfers. The program that we set out needed some tweaking, and we've since looked at what we can do. We ended up having in that department we had only because of retirements 2 paramedics, and we have 3 shifts. And the paramedics are needed for every transfer, just about, because if you're moving somebody from hospital to hospital, they really want somebody that has an ALS that has that capability. So that didn't achieve as much as quickly as I was hoping for. The budget as a whole, we stayed within our budget. Some departments didn't need quite as much in the line item. There's some left over. But as a whole, we were pretty much on target. Looking at going into the 25 budget, not too much of a change, actually. We've got increases in chemicals that we have. The water had more expenses, the water department, because of chemicals. The filtrations and things like that, because our system is old, we've had to spend more money on filters, on chemicals to get to the desired result that we need to handle our capacity. So we're working on that too. That's a big thing. But as a whole, I was really happy with our budget. I wouldn't, I didn't look at it and say, boy, we missed something in a drastic way. Even with the transfers in the fire department, that was missed, but it wasn't not as huge as I
Okay.
would expect.
Have you instituted any new policies to help you monitor spending and revenue as it comes in throughout the year? Because I assume that this is something that you're looking at all the time.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
not just doing it when you develop the budget, I hope.
Yeah. Now the budget's looked at monthly. I mean, every time somebody wants to spend something, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean the cash is in the bank and go forward, right? It has to be approved. Anything over $500 has to be approved by the treasurer or myself.
Okay.
And larger items where it needs to, that we're going to have to ban for, we're going to have to do something like that, has to be planned in advance. We have a capital plan for that was implemented for all capital projects, repairs, paving, whatever it happens to be going forward, and that's updated on a monthly basis. All other large expenses, equipment, things like that you need is part of that, and then we're tailoring that, melding that into the financial budget. So we'll have a very clear picture of where we stand with the big ticket items.
Okay. One of the things you did was you cut back on a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
You upset some people, and
Yes, I did,
and I think
unfortunately.
that's to be expected. But my question is, do you have any plans to maybe roll back some of that, loosen some of those restrictions? Do we have the money yet?
We don't have the money yet. No, we won't have it yet in 25. Once we are able to go through the deficit financing and be able to consolidate our short-term debt or in bands, then we'll be able to look at the picture and say, I think maybe we can pull some of these things back in. So I appreciate people's patience with us going through this. There's really no other way around it. I did not cut anything that we couldn't live with. You know what I mean? I mean, I had to focus on essential services because if you don't have the fire and you don't have EMS and you don't have police, those services keep people alive, and they're essential. And then after that, you've got garbage pickup and all the things that our wonderful DPW does. We have a system, garbage pickup and all that, that is unlike any other community in our area. They do a lot for us. So um, essential services got top priority. Anything else that the city was doing that were ancillary or that were donations that people would get, different nonprofits would get from one year to the next, they have to be able to fend for themselves for a few years, because it's our job is not to feed nonprofits. Our job is to provide essential services to our community, and that's what the taxpayers want.
You mentioned garbage pickup. Have you looked at the profitability, not profitability, but is that a break-even proposition as compared to contracting it out to an outside company?
I think during Mayor Peters' time, they did a lot of evaluation about that. What outside, like a Spoon or a contractor like that coming in, is not is not as affordable as people might think, and then you're at the mercy of them raising rates whenever they want to. Everyone that I have talked to that has some of these outside providers are asking if the city of Little Falls would consider handling their garbage pickup. These contractors also, they charge the community members for buckets, for, bags, whatever it happens to be. They don't pick up a sofa or a bed. They don't pick up green, when you rake your
Yeah.
lawn and all that, and
Yeah,
the
our guys are
leaves, they
very
don't pick
good.
that up.
They're very good when it comes to that sort of thing. They're very
They're,
accommodating.
well, they're very tolerant. They figure it's better to pick it up, even though it,
Yeah.
I mean, there is a criteria that needs to be around 3 feet by 3 feet. But they're pretty good sports when it comes to keeping it clean.
But is that a cost center on its own? You could really drill down on it to see how
Yeah.
that's doing.
And it's doing fine. I mean, that's not one of the areas that I'm concerned about at the moment.
Okay.
It's doing it as affordably as what other cities are telling me, and the work that I have done as far as investigating it.
We have a question from Jimmy Catrino.
Oh, good.
Can you speak to the growing issue of abandoned homes, broken windows, open front doors for people and rodents to walk in, garbage on front lawns?
Yes. We have, since I've been in, we've implemented a procedure that the codes officer um, goes out, and if they see things, from an open door and things like that, if we can notify the homeowner or the property owner, we do. We can't just go into somebody's property or on their porch and start hauling off things that are ugly in the neighborhood. It would be wonderful, but no, by law, we cannot do that. So we can go in the front lawn. If we notify them and cite them through codes and they do not pick up within 30 days, then we take it to court. And once the court, we get it on the docket, that takes usually another 30 days. And then the judge weighs in, judge looks at it, and the judge typically will say, well, let's give them another 30 days to see if they can remove all of the problem. And when they don't, then and they don't show up for the next court meeting or whatever, and they don't achieve that, then we are able to go out, send DPW, and they clear the property with from whatever trash is there, and we attach a fee to their annual taxes, and it's 2,800 for DPW to go out and do that. So it depends on the lot, depends on what they have to do. It's an ongoing problem, and we have a lot of out of town, building owners. Uh, i- the process that it takes to from start to finish, from when codes looks at it and cites the problem, is too lengthy. And there's too much grace period. When somebody knows you've been given 30 days already, then when you add another 30 days grace period on it, and sometimes it's a 30-day wait to get it on the docket for your court case to come up, that's just too long. So we're looking at a couple of programs. One, I think Skylar is the one that has it, but they have a committee that is more of a jurisdictional type of committee that allows for decisions to be made at a committee level uh, rather than go through the courts all the time with these property problems.
Okay.
But it is a problem. It's ongoing. Zombie houses and distressed houses, we have a list. Police officers are still going and making door and checking doors on, I think it's 38 of them that are in good condition, so that they're not total tear downs. But they also look at the ones that are really falling over. We've got Herkimer County legislators have their own land bank now, or land bank now, and they have two properties that they approved for Little Falls to be taken down in 24. So that should happen in the spring, I would imagine, early spring. 25, they want to be able to do more. And so they're helping out with the ones. Taking down a property is about $44,000 per property just to take it out. And that it's not counting any remediation that needs to be done with lead or lead abatement, which a lot of our houses have, the old paint and things like that. So it's one of those things when when we see it, and usually it's a community. We're in a process right now where we have our codes officer who's going to be retiring at the end of January. We have a new codes officer coming in, so we're optimistic about where we go from here, and are looking at things we can do to expedite that problem.
So who's the new codes officer? Can you say?
Well, not yet, but I will
I'm
share
looking
it
for a
soon.
surprise here, or something. So.
Yeah, it's a female. So we're still working through contracts, things like that. But I think that a person who is very particular, and I think that that's helpful. And but we're losing a knowledge base of someone for 37 years. So, and Phil has agreed to be near the phone or whatever we need.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jimmy Catrino, for the question. Appreciate it. Getting back to blight. So I was driving up Church Street yesterday, and there's those 4 homes right in a row, all boarded up right across from the cemetery. And I thought, I've got to ask her about that because, as you know, I interviewed Mike Edwards, and we talked a lot about the land bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question is, are you staying in touch with him?
Yes.
On a regular basis, putting the pressure on?
They have, Mike and others, we talk frequently about things like that. That particular property, see, the challenge is when the property owner continues to pay their taxes. And as crazy as it is, then that property doesn't necessarily go back to the county, right?
Yeah, it's in limbo.
It's in limbo. And you can appeal to the property owner. You can do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, if they're paying their taxes, it's not much for us to do. When they don't pay their taxes, that goes to the county, and the county starts collecting. And then after they try to collect for a couple of years, and then we can get it back as a city and take it down ourselves or do something. But I'm really pressuring them to take down the ones that we desperately need. The first two that they were wanting to take down needed to be taken down, but there are others that are a whole lot worse in my mind that need to be taken down, but they weren't on their list. In order to be on their list, they've got to get clear title in order to go in and take them down. And so that's slowing the process down a little bit. But thank goodness they're working very closely with us. They know the city. We've got two legislators that watch out for us, with Kurt Ackerman and Pete Campion, and they really are giving us a lot of attention. So I think it's just a matter of time. And they've only really received their certification as a land bank, what, in the summertime? I mean, they haven't been one very long. But I think we're going to see a lot of things happen. Those particular buildings, we've been looking at over the years, and Chad, our city engineer, has been looking at it too. The problem is the way those foundations were put in order to remove them, it takes out the road. It's connected to the road somehow, and Chet could go into all the details of that. So it's not an easy takedown, and but they're top on our list. That's for
I
sure.
think it's really important for the public to understand what you're up against when it comes to this issue,
Mhm.
because otherwise they're looking at, like I do sometimes, what's happening with this?
Yeah.
Why is this? Some people might think that we're ignoring it, but obviously you're not.
No, we're not ignoring it, but there are some that, when people talk about certain ones that maybe aren't on our radar, it's always good to let us know if you see something going in that direction
Mhm.
so that we can pounce on it. The patrols from code enforcement to drive the streets and look at challenges that we're having
Mhm.
is real important to me. When you look at we you so often you have so much work on your plate and you're going from one place to another and doing things. If we can have more of a routine of checking, I think that maybe a little bit more proactive. We'll look for things, but certainly when anyone calls and they call me or they call the codes department, they respond immediately. And so a lot of it, if we can't act immediately, is challenges with regard to the law. I mean, what can we do? And there's a couple that are very frustrating because as soon as we got them in, and we had the DPW clean them out and get everything straightened up, great for about 6 months, and then you look and you see they're piling the stuff up again. And the occupancy rate, how many people they have in some of these buildings, there's just a lot to work with when it comes to codes. And codes and the police department have been working collaboratively with all of the squatter problems we have. You can tell we're not having those anymore. But every day's a new day. Just because they're gone now, tomorrow they may be back. So I really do depend on people communicating with me and letting me know if they see something that we can, act on.
How do you engage with the community to really understand the needs of our businesses, our residents? What are you doing?
Well, I am the only mayor that has been a full-time mayor. I'm there from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon, 5 days a week. I'm at meetings in the evenings and also events and meetings on the weekends. So the community, for the $500 a month I'm paid, it gets a lot of hours. um,
So,
but
what's your hourly rate?
yeah, I think it might be 30 cents. I'm not sure. But anyway, I knew that going in. So, I mean, I'm doing this because I really want to help the community. This is a city, I grew up in a city I love. I moved back here because of a quality of life. I didn't want to have the quality of life of a big city, which is blight and all of the issues we're talking about, and homeless and all of that. So it's very important to me to get these things fixed. And so they're definitely on my radar. But
When I interviewed you, I guess it was probably a year ago, I asked you about your goals for the coming year. And the top priority, I believe you said, was financial stability. So, when you think about financial stability, are you there yet?
oh, yes, we're stable. We're still vulnerable. but we are stable.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Mhm. We're, you
Let,
know,
let me just interrupt for a second. When you say vulnerable, give me an example.
oh gosh, if we had a tornado going down Main Street like Rome did, that would that would uh, be a real challenge. If we had flooding like we've had in the past, in the cost in repairs and things like that, so we're 1 foot away from having a financial disaster, right?
But we're paying our bills on time.
We're paying our bills. We're still at 60 days, and our vendors have been very patient with us. That is how we manage our cash flow right now. I'm hoping that we can, as soon as we start looking at the moving into deficit financing this year, that we'll be able to get back on, the regular 30-day. But we're very rigid about how that works. I mean, we have a list. It's not just random. We know exactly when it comes up for 60 days and the checks go out. And
Okay.
so that has been helpful in, getting approval from the audit committee and things like that each time. It's scheduled in order to be able to stay as current as we can.
Okay. One of the other things I asked you in an interview, that initial one, I think we did 3. In the first one, we talked about property valuation.
Yeah,
And one of the things you said was that you needed to be totally comfortable with it before you moved forward on it.
right.
So where are you?
I understand it better. I understand the nuances of it. The state had been mentioning it to me a couple of times that we really need to do that. Usually, by charter, we're supposed to reeval every 3 years. And it has been almost 60 years since we've done anything. So the challenge is when you do that, it's where some people who should be paying less are paying too much, and then some people who have it's usually newer properties that tend to get raised in a reevaluation. There's a third. They always say there's a third that will be reduced, a third that will stay the same, and a third that will be higher. We have 70% of our properties that date before 1940. So, we don't have a lot of new construction going on. But what I would like to see is an even balance. And I think we have to really look at that. I'm talking to different people because I want to make sure that it is not going to be a hardship on our community. We've got enough going on already. But I do want it to be fair. I don't want someone with a $800,000 house to be paying less than someone with a $200,000 house.
Theoretically, you could have a reduction in revenue,
Yes.
which
Well,
could hurt you financially.
well, what it does is it won't be a reduction in revenue. It'll be a reduction in the percentage. So the percentage will come down, but with the assessment, usually it'll be so instead of the percentage that we're paying right now, it'll drop the percentage, but with the elevation of assessed value and those that, and some of them are commercial properties, that factories, things like that. Those have to, when they're balanced out, you would assume we would be able to drop the percentage, but you'll probably pay the same, I would guess.
Would you have an opportunity to look at the end result and how it affects that everyone
Yes.
in the city before you actually do it?
Yes.
So if it's a nightmare, you could say, I don't think we can do this right now.
Right. And Dan Maxwell's our assessor, and he and I have been having numerous conversations about it and how to do it the best way, and the cost involved and things like that. But I'm not there yet to say I'm ready or I'm totally comfortable with it. But I know more than I did when I first came in.
And what was the cost again to do this?
A couple $100,000.
Do you have that money?
No, that would have to come from a grant.
Okay.
And the state does have grants. I think you might have a call.
This is a question from Paul Swan. What can be done about the empty storefronts on Main Street and empty apartments above the stores? is it the cost to bring them up to code? Is the cost to bring them up to code too great? It's a good question, Paul. And I actually had that on my list. So go
Ah,
ahead.
yeah, I don't think it's a codes challenge that I know of. I think it's just a matter of, after, well, before COVID, around 2019, there was a lot of activity on Main Street. A lot of people excited and moving in, and that sort of thing. They survived COVID, some of them, and then it slacked back again. And so it's a matter of getting, in my opinion anyway, it's a matter of getting enough restaurants downtown. It's enough storefronts. If you have the restaurants, people will come. And I think that that's the starting place. And so building back some of the restaurants, also looking at retailers will pop up and rent these places also. We've been working with the Downtown Revitalization Grant for the businesses down on Main Street. And we're kind of in a hold pattern at the moment. They're looking at an environmental issue that we need to resolve before we continue. But we have one of the people on West Main that is putting a new roof on and working on some, I think, an HVAC system in the future. So a lot of good things will happen from that grant. But it's more that I think people want to see activity and to invest. And we need a little bit more activity in our downtown. Still better than a lot of downtowns, and I'm really proud of it. But the empty floors up above, the remodeling and the cost of all of that is expensive, especially when you're taking state money. You've got to go through all the regulatory hoops, and so that adds to the cost of repairs.
Tell me about the environmental issue. I want to know more about that.
The environmental issue is one about chemicals and drainage coming into the downtown area. But nothing's ever been cited, nothing has ever been studied. It's just a question.
Where's that coming from?
That's coming from the state.
Now, where's the drainage? Where are the chemicals located?
Well, that would have been the modern cleaners long ago.
Oh, okay.
They were in business 80 years.
Right.
And so the soil is what they're looking at. So we have to wait for those studies
That
to
could
take
be a
place.
really expensive proposition, I would think, to get that study done.
Yeah, it will be.
That puts a dent in your ability to administrate that loan, that grant rather, the DRI grant.
We're in a pause until we solve that problem.
How about the canopy? Any movement on what that design is going to be? Is that still part of the project?
The canopy is still part of the project. It's a big project. The facade improvements and the internal improvements. That's a small project. That was $600,000 in that grant fund. The canopy and all of Main Street is, several $1 million, and all of that we have not started. And for the reason is that I can't front the money in order to get to that project. And so the state has been very gracious to allow us a little wiggle room. So we still have that available to us. That Sealy Street might come up before the Main Street project.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about the DRI process. Mm-hmm. You get a bill from a vendor. Whoever the applicant is must pay the vendor, and then go to the state to get reimbursed, which means the applicant has to have some funds, some resources to be able to do that.
Yes, even these small projects, you have to have the money in the bank ready to go and to fund the projects. So when you're looking at Main Street and the canopies, you're looking at the $3 million project. I can't tie that kind of financing up right now, given where we are financially. I have to really work with more fundamental problems that we have just in operating expense and leaks and pipes and, just keeping the city running.
Okay. So here's another question. We're talking about DRI. Let's keep going down that path. Out of all the projects that were approved, David's trying to get my attention. Out of all the projects that were approved by the the LPC, the local planning committee. Are there any of those? I think there were 10.
Mhm.
Are any of those dead in the water, not going forward that you know of?
Uh, well, there was one project with, a private project with Youth and Family Center, and they decided to use other funding, so they pulled out of it. They didn't need it for the child care facility, so that's already built and functioning, and it's so that one they weren't needing it, so that would free up close to 400,000. And then I think the hydro was another one that he's decided to. The plan originally was not going to go forward. So I've had a conversation with him the other day, and so he was going to also withdraw from those funds. So that's about $1 million that could go back into the pot and be used for other projects, and even for them if they want to come up with something different, they could approach it again. Um, the dairyman, which is what everybody talks about all the time, has been quiet. I've not heard a thing. That is one that I've talked to the state about. We have quarterly meetings about because the site has not been secured. Uh, can we open that money up, which is another 3 million to other developments?
Okay.
And so they're looking into that, but no
Okay.
answer yet.
I want to just follow up on that after. I think we have a question. We have a question, Dave? This is from Jacqueline Christine. We rent a spot on Main Street. We are trying to open up a business there, but we are in need of a grant and don't know where to turn to make this dream happen. Thank you, Jacqueline.
We don't have any business development grants. If you own the property, there are some different grants that, that we can talk about. Restore New York, some of these adaptive reuse grants, things like that, historic building grants. As far as business grants, we really need that. I mean, we have had small ones, 20,000, 10,000, but I mean, we really need some kind of funding to help launch businesses. So I have it on my radar. We don't have anything at the moment, but it's definitely what's needed to help Main Street. It really is. And so the funds for business startup, also the funds for rehabbing the upstairs and things like that to residential areas. Now the DRI project has some capability there when we get that back up and running again. If they haven't applied, if we have funds available, we can open that back up to the public and say, if you didn't apply earlier, we're opening it up again. But we'll see where we end up. If we have to do remediation of any type or studies of any type environmentally, that's going to take up some of the funds in that. And so it's unfortunate because it's been whittled down more than I would have liked.
Okay. I think we have another one. This is from Karen Harrington. Do you have any information on the Adirondack Bank project and when the scaffolding will be removed? And on the opposite corner, where the particle board in the window will be replaced with glass. So she's referring to obviously Adirondack Bank, but also the old Snyder Hotel.
Oh, yeah.
That building.
Well, the Adirondack Bank, the owner has been notified, and it's been challenging. We're working through codes on this, and it's an ongoing project to get movement there. I do realize that we're in the middle of winter, so things that need to be repaired are slowed because of contractor availability. And the kind of work they need to be doing is up on the eaves where the trees and the bushes that are grown in between the mortar. And so it's kind of a roofing project. And with snow, it's not likely anything is probably going to happen until the spring. It is an eyesore, we all know, and I would like it done quickly. So I'm pressuring as much as I can, but the reality is it is winter. So we're probably not going to get very far.
Okay. Thank you, Karen, for that question. Any more, David?
And did I have another one?
It was the Snyder building.
Oh, the Snyder building.
Right.
The Snyder building is for sale. There have been several interested buyers. Nothing has closed yet, but yeah, the plywood there. We need to. I need to contact the trust and see if we can do something about that. That's one of those things is not very attractive,
That's terrible.
and especially if you're selling it.
You would think that's an easy fix.
I think so. I think
as opposed to the Adirondack bill.
right. I would think so.
Okay, moving on. In the past, you've mentioned the fact that we thought we had a comprehensive plan all set in stone and done, but apparently not so. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the comprehensive plan is a good vision statement. It lacks detail. It lacks how we're going to execute on this and what are the metrics and what are the milestones. How do we know we've achieved it? When you're coming up with a plan, you also have to have a plan of how you're going to execute on this. So you have ideas. The ideas in the comprehensive plan were very, very broad. Like we want more business downtown. We want more recreational activities, around the canal. Okay, well, how are you going to get them and what type of activities? What would work there? None of that is in there. So more discussions, more community engagement in it is going to be required. And we're just getting to the point where we can start on that. Next planning meeting, we'll start on the comprehensive plan. But there are other things too that, we're looking at on the codes, from in one area, like right around the downtown area, we've had residential up in the upper lofts for a long time, right? Because all of that predated codes. And so, but a lot of the streets, little connecting streets in Albany Street and going around that area are in that commercial zone, and they're not allowed to do that, to have any apartments upstairs. And I think it's an advantage to be able to open that up. So we'll see. We're going to bring that up in the next planning meeting and to see, we'll have a public hearing for people. But the idea of if you're in a C1 or C2, you might be able to have 2 or 3 apartments above and allow them to do the same thing that they're doing on Main Street, right in that area. And so it gives businesses down on the lower level and then residential in the top. And so I think that will help too.
Okay. I want to get back to the DRI thing because I almost forgot to follow that up. If that money becomes available for other applicants, new applicants or old applicants, what is the process to apply for that money? Is it the same as it was before?
It will. That is a good question. I don't know what the state will demand of us for that. I would imagine it will follow a similar process. So where you would fill out an application, it would be reviewed by a committee, whether it's I think maybe a new local planning committee. My preference in a local planning committee is that they are all residents of Little Falls. So I would expect that would be the case. And then the money it goes through the approval process on the state side, and then the contracting process once the group is approved. One by one, the state has a contractor that would come out and visit and go into contract, look at all of the different things that you would need. So same process, I would expect.
Okay. Would there be anything that would prevent an applicant who was already awarded money from getting more money to expand a project or improve on the project that was approved?
That would be up to the state whether they would allow that or not.
Okay. So a lot of unanswered questions when it comes to that.
Yeah, unanswered questions. Just from what I know so far and having experienced the DRI from writing it in the very beginning, I don't see that would be a problem. I would see that they would probably allow that, but I don't know. I can't speak for them.
Alrighty. You mentioned the planning board.
Got one comment before that, Ralph, if you want to.
Okay, sure. Thanks so much for answering my question. I just moved to the city a couple of months ago. This is Karen Harrington again. I love walking the downtown area. Your answers and plans are very encouraging.
Oh, wonderful.
It's a
Well,
compliment.
yes, thank you. I appreciate that. We have such a beautiful downtown, and it can only be better, right. Everybody that comes through Little Falls, they say, "What a gem of a city." And then the buts come in. But if you could only do this, if you could do that, so we're gonna restore it. It's going to be uh, better than ever, and we just need a couple of years to get through some of the difficult things, the financial crisis that we had last year,
Yeah.
and things will look a whole lot better to you, I'm sure.
It is a beautiful city, and I've lived here all my life. I love living here. But when I travel other places, other communities, when I drive through, there are probably three things I notice. One is litter, and I think we're pretty good with that. With
I
that,
think
It's a
so.
pretty clean city. The other thing is blight,
Mhm.
and the third thing are the roads.
Yeah.
And we already talked about blight,
Now you want to
but
talk about
the
paving.
roads. I had to drive up Birch Street yesterday as an example.
Mhm.
That road is absolutely falling apart. So what are
Yeah.
the plans to? And I realize this is a big nut to crack, but you just can't let them go forever. They're just going to get worse.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And we have CHIPS money. It's a state grant that we love, and it is specifically for paving and roads and repairs. Last year, we repaired Danube Street and Diamond Street. And there were some really gnarly areas of drainage and problems, and those two have been fixed. We've got a punch list still on, I know for sure on Diamond Street and perhaps on Danube as well. So that working with the contractor and trying to get some things finalized. So that's where that is. But we have a lot of paving plans this year. So this is going to be our year to finally get back to paving some of the areas. We also, I mean, the road up to Moreland Park drives me crazy. The road, Furnace Street. I mean, and Furnace Street gets so much flooding all the time that the patches here and there, it just needs to be repaved. So it's not for lack of employees, lack of will. Money is one of the things that even for the CHIPS money, we have to bond for it because it's any road paving and things like that. It's expensive, right? And so you take a short-term ban out for it, and then they pay very quickly, like in a quarter. Typically, when you're waiting for state reimbursement, it's a lot longer than that. So they pay pretty quickly. So we love working with the CHIPS program, and it's wonderful. And we have money in there that we are allowed to draw down on for grants. So I think you see a lot of things happening with paving this year. Fingers crossed.
Good. Were there any other infrastructure projects that we completed in 2024 that we haven't mentioned so far?
Oh, we've had a lot of a lot of sewer and water leaks that have been repaired. Um, Mains in a couple of areas that were just huge, and the water. You have no concept until you walk up to the hole that the guys are working in, and you see the volume of water coming at us. There was one, I believe, on Loomis Street that looked at recently, and there was one down on Mill Street that we had right next to Feldmeyer's there. That were large ones that I was involved in. We have leaks everywhere, and most of the leaks are in the service lines from not the mains necessarily, but from people's house to the curb. And so we've got lots and lots of repairs that we'll be doing this year. We're part of the lead line replacement of all of the pipes in the city within a 10-year period of time to remove the lead lines and to put in copper or, plastic. And so that's one of the things that is mandated by the federal government. And we're going, place by place. We have a whole list and just working our way down that list. And they're actually looking at allowing the city to grant and bond for the service lines from the road, which we're typically only responsible for, to the house. So that's a big thing. We saw that the comptroller weighed in on that with the city of Troy, and we're hoping that it will open the door because our population, they can't afford, you know, 50,000, 10,000. They don't have that, and you look at Diamond Street replacing, the service lines from the road up to these houses, you're talking what, 90,000 or better. This, we need some
It's a
state
huge
help for
project.
this. Yes, so we're working on it, and for the city to be able to do it by law, we can't use taxpayer money on private properties. So that's the hiccup. And so up to this point, we haven't been able to do that. So the comptroller's report on that, or opinion on that, was really interesting, and certainly plays into what we're dealing with. And then on leaks, water leaks, we have a guy that we had come out, and I call him the leak whisperer. He does it at night. He listens for the leaks, and he tracks exactly where they are, because we lose about $300,000 worth of water that we've paid for to have refined for households out on the ground every
That's
year.
per year.
Yeah. So that's a big chunk of money that we're trying to, trying to fix where we don't have so many. So he was out just a few weeks back, and the good news is he found about 30 or so leaks, but they were small, which is frustrating to me because I needed big things to shore up. But there's a lot of water treatment, water distribution work that we're doing right now.
At the last council meeting, you mentioned the water emergency that you declared. Talk about that.
The water emergency is, this is a proactive move on our part. We see the perfect storm coming together in the springtime, and we've got to have a fix, because it's very likely we're to the point where we're very vulnerable. We have all of the water the capacity that we are needing as a city. We have to almost triple it in order to be able to run it through and have the water available for the refining.
You're
of it.
referring to the sand filters
Yes.
up by the golf course?
Right.
Okay.
The sand filters, sand, it's like little pebbles, and there's little crevices in each one of them. And as it moves the water through, it takes all the little particles and holds them in the sand and allows the water to clean and move forward, right? So we have 8 reservoirs, and they're really something interesting to look at, but they're huge. And this process goes on. It's called slow sand process. And it was something that was interesting in the 1980s, but now things have changed so much. This is a really antiquated way of doing it and very labor intensive. Well, our sand, even to be able to take one of them offline, replace the sand, and to be able to cleanse it and to try to fix it, it's impossible to do that because of the volume that we have to move through every day in order to keep up with our capacity needs as a city. So we have tons of water. It's not like we are ever going to run out of water. We have tons of water, but clean water, we need it filtrated, right, in order for it to come out of your tap. Because even we've got, Spruce Lake, we've got the King Reservoir, we've got the Beaver Creek Reservoir. We've got a lot of water. We haven't been using Spruce Lake because we've had the tannins in it make it look like tea, and nobody wants brown water coming out of their faucet. It's perfectly clean as far as it being able to ingest it, but it doesn't look good, the color. And so the sand filters could never handle that. So we're looking at, because we know spring is going to deposit more particles and leaves and you name it into the water as the snow starts to melt. That's when those filtration systems really overwork. And we've got them right now almost maxed out. We're changing filters all the time. We used to change filters, once a month or so. Now we're changing weekly. So it's the perfect storm, like I say, as far as having enough water to run through the system.
Is this going to involve a total change in technology in order to fix this? And what kind of money are we talking about?
Well, this is why we are eligible for emergency money grants for this. And so we want to take advantage of it, and announcing that we are declaring that we're at an emergency state, or we expect it to be, not being able to take off to even clean a reservoir, not being able to, the capacity of how much you can move through and all. So it's like, and then with the leaks that we're experiencing, um, we do qualify. And in order to kickstart this thing and move to a better technology, we're looking at a membrane technology, which is like big tubes that the water goes through to filter it. And a couple of the guys, the city engineer and our water treatment operator, has been out on field trips and looking at these actually working, and very efficient, very scalable. They actually can bring them out on a trailer. And if you need one for 1 million gallons an hour, uh, that's a larger one. And then the next one. So it depends on, we're looking at shared services with our area communities. So we want to be able to scale up readily, quickly, to handle any capacity that's thrown at us, because we have an abundance of water.
So when you talk about shared services, you're talking about supplying them
Yes.
with water,
Yes.
which would be
In our region.
money in our pocket.
Yeah, it's good revenue for the city. It's part of stabilizing the city with additional revenue. That's been our problem. Our problem has not been a spending problem. Our problem has been lack of revenue. The diminishing population. You have costs that have just skyrocketed after COVID. And so, I mean, you've got a 2% tax cap, and inflation's been running about 11. And so you see where the problem comes in if you're not looking elsewhere for revenue.
You mentioned that it was $300,000 a year that you're losing in water. How many gallons is that?
Mm.
Any idea?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have it off the top of my head.
It's okay. Just curious.
But Rick Smith would certainly have it, or, Chet Szymanski. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, Ralph, that came
Okay.
in and was texted to me. This is from Andy McAvoy, so I can't put it up on the screen.
Okay.
It says, can Deborah put pressure on the New York State Department of Transportation to resurface the main roads in and out of Little Falls, especially since we are a city? The Dowsville Road, Middleville Road, and Route 167 South to Route 5S have been in horrible shape for many years and are in dire need of both reconstruction and resurfacing. They are unsafe.
Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, I think, Andy, it's a good question, and I think it is something to follow up on. We've had some conversations with Department of Transportation and some of the grants that are available in terms of dangerous streets, dangerous roads where accidents are occurring more frequently. And that Dowsville Road, that's one in particular that, there's some issues there. There's Albany Street also is kind of an issued area. So we're working with them on that. But as an overall, trying to get a little attention is a really good idea. And I agree with you. I think the roads are in desperate need of repair.
Got another question here that I could pop up on the screen, Ralph.
This is from Paul Swan again. Is there any way that residents can volunteer their spare time to help beautify the city with various small projects like weed eating, picking up litter, painting, or is there a liability issue? Thank you, Paul. That's a good question.
No, we love that. And we actually have a couple of nonprofits that help us. And actually, Main Street, the Main Street Association has been helping with liability insurance for our volunteers. We love our volunteers. And yes, there are a couple of groups that are working on beautification. We've got our volunteer group that has been working on Buttermilk Falls, if you've seen that, with donations and doing things. So yes, we absolutely love it. And, it does take a whole community to look at the city and say, this is my city and I care about that. And we're DPW, and we're short staffed in just about every department. If we had more people, we could probably handle it, but we don't. And I'm not in a position to be able to increase staffing to any large extent to do it. So We have been so thankful for donations, for all of the things that people do, their time. They planted flowers last year. There's a lot. Rotary is always helping us out, and the Elks Club, and a lot of different groups. But often it's two or three people that say, I want to do something, and we love it. When you look at buttermilk, the way that has emerged over the last year, that was just, people go up there and hang out, but it really wasn't like a park. They trim the trees back. They've, taken rocks out. They've got a little bridge they're going to be putting up there, to get over a couple of rocks. And and they're talking about a labyrinth, and a group is working with that. That is all volunteer work, and the city supports them in any way we can. But good ideas, and you're talking about retired people, a lot of retired people. We have in Buttermilk, there's a 15-year-old who really carries her weight, all the way to people in their 70s that are out there trying to make that place something
It's a
special.
terrific project.
It
It
is.
really is.
It is.
Whenever I speak to people from other communities, and we talk about the differences in communities, and one of the things that always comes up is the spirit of volunteerism in Little Falls. And I always say that's one of the reasons we have what we have here: festivals, all these things, volunteers for organizations, and that's the difference. And without that,
It is. And, our DPW guys, they do a great job with the litter and trying to keep things up. But, we were talking last summer with weed eating and some of the weeds coming up in the streets and things like that. We were laughing, and we need, the weed whackers of Little Falls, a group to just get their weed eater and walk the streets and try to help out, because even the bike trail too, there's so much work to keep up with that. And if it weren't for volunteers, I think it wouldn't look as good as it does. And like I
sure.
say, most of the time anytime when they are cleaning something or taking brush away or working as a team, DPW will come pick it all up for them and work with them, whatever they need.
I want to get back to the planning committee. I had another question. Back when you were trying to do a moratorium on land development, you said that the planning committee was not equipped, not knowledgeable enough to do site planning and site review. Has that problem been resolved?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Tell me a little more.
Planning and codes both have to take 4 hours of training every single year. And we didn't even have full committees. I put in 24 people when I first got into the committees. Most of the city committees were empty. Planning hadn't met in over a year, and zoning board of appeals, there were a couple of people there, but not enough for a quorum. And so these people we've got really good people on both planning and zoning, and they've taken their tests, their 4 hours, and that was last year. Now they've got 4 hours to go again. So we've improved the process. We have forms that we've come up with that work, and we're still refining those. But a whole process of what happens when a large project comes into the system and where it goes. Typically, you fill out an application for building permit. And if it's a use variance or an area variance, those are determined at that point in time. Codes officer either approves or denies. If he denies, it's usually the applicant usually wants to appeal. So it goes from the codes officer goes into planning, and they pull the package together, open a seeker, they do all of the environmental to make sure that it's done, and then it goes into the zoning board of appeals. So it's worked really well. We had the Rockton Plaza project. It's moved through, and it was a good test run of how we're going to handle it. We wanted to handle it as professionally as we could and align our process and procedures to what Utica would do, what Saratoga does, what larger communities do. It was a pretty much a willy-nilly thing going on. Now we've got some structure to it, so we feel more confident. But yeah, we've made huge improvements in that. But the comprehensive plan still needs work, and because without the level of detail that we were talking about before, it's hard for a judge who would be looking at it. So it goes through, if a project goes through zoning and they decide they don't like what zoning has to say, so they appeal it. It goes before a judge, and the judge makes a decision. He can't get a true picture on why something was zoned a certain way without detail and without community input, and that it's documented in that comprehensive plan.
Okay. That brings me to another subject. What's the latest on the Reed Street project?
Nothing has been going on, actually. I've had no communication with them at all. So I don't know.
Do you find that unusual?
A bit, because it seemed to be, things were, very much in a hurry earlier on, where the moratorium was going to present a hardship. But now nothing. We went through the planning committee. It was referred to zoning to get a decision there, but they haven't been available to schedule it to go before zoning.
Okay.
So I don't know. They're taking a pause. They were working on some study, and that was the last I heard, and that's months ago.
Okay. What have you done about affordable housing, availability of affordable housing in Little Falls? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we have, well, just about any house that you find in Little Falls is affordable compared to other cities and other problems. Our housing stock is old, and so if you're looking at affordable, most of the time you can buy it for a song, but you're going to have to put some money into it. Sometimes, as much, or in 2 to 3 times as much to get it up to modern day. When you're looking at affordable housing, as far as institutional or not, or apartments, affordable apartments, and things like that, I think we do a pretty good job. Our zone that we have affordable housing in right now is an R4, residential 4, and that's where we're looking at designating that in the comprehensive plan too, as a planned area that we would have. A low-income housing. You've got with Rockton, I believe that we're getting 240 some additional units. Valley View, we have, they haven't even started that yet, and that'll be coming up soon in 26. And that's going to be, they've got 10 acres there, so that's going to be a much larger development. And I've seen what they want to do, but as far as it's still kind of up in the air as to what it would look like. But the idea is to get more 2, 3 bedroom apartments there to be able to accommodate families. So yeah, we are actually creating a larger capacity than what the state requires in their pro-housing community of 1% a year to increase capacity. We're at 25% increase.
So does that mean that Little Falls will have plenty of low-income housing available for people?
I believe so. And it's just growing organically the way it has over the years. The Little Falls Housing Authority, we have had a relationship with for a number of years, and they're a good partner, and they take good care of our low-income people, and they're looking at this new redevelopment will make a huge difference. These apartments are old, they're small, especially Rockton. So they'll be fresh and clean and modern, and, they look great. And then you've got, because there's the smaller tower that will be built, that will be 4 stories, that will be next to the 9-story tower. But the whole thing will be all new and, developed out. And then you've got the Valley View Courts, that right now, it's not even, most of those places are not handicap accessible because of the way it was built back in the 80s, I guess, or even before that, maybe.
Will that project require any zoning variances?
That particular project, it won't be a zone because it's already zoned correctly
I
for
thought
what
maybe
they want to
if
do.
they change the height, if they
Those would be area variances. Yeah. So the height, there may be something there. It's an R4, so I don't think they're going to go up higher than 3 feet, but it may be setback issues. But right now, I think I don't think there's going to be much going on with regard to that, but we'll see.
Okay.
You never know until you see their plans, and it goes through codes, and they determine all of that. But um, yeah, it's easier when it's zoned. Like the Reed Street is not zoned for, it's zoned R1, which is residential. And what their desire was to create a C1, which is commercial in that area. Because they were wanting, a daycare, and I think there was talk about kind of like a mini mart there too. So that's when it gets into a longer
I think
dialogue.
they also wanted R3, right? Multi-family, 3-story. I think that's an R3.
Yeah, I think
In
you're
addition, in addition to the commercial aspect of it
right.
for daycare.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned a little while ago shared services. You were talking about water. What other shared services are you talking about or talking with other communities?
Well,
Anything else?
Yeah, we have quite a few, and interestingly, the last consortium meeting we had with other communities, they came up with things that I wasn't really expecting, which is interesting. They are definitely looking at garbage pickup. They're looking at taking in garbage. The sludge removal that we have for everybody has with their wastewater treatment, the sewage, it has to be removed. It is expensive. People don't realize how much we spend on removing that on a monthly basis. And things like engineering services, personnel services, payroll, accounting. One of the big ones that we're working on right now is health insurance. Health insurance for municipalities is off the scale, crazy expensive. And the rates have been going up around 20% for most of us for the last 2 years. And the other communities where the counties and things in different areas where they work on coming up with a self-insured concept so we save money and all. But there's water, there's sewage, there's fiber, there's hydroelectric. I would like to get back to the hydroelectric. I'm really fascinated by it and spent some time looking through some things from our engineer the other day. We have 2 spots on the Mohawk River. We have the Spruce Lake Dam, and then we have 3 in the pipe opportunities at some of the reservoir locations. And so we have the ability to produce our own electricity, and we did in the past. And that would be really wonderful. And so to take care of the city of Little Falls, of course, and our surrounding areas if it's capable.
Where are the 2 spots on the river that you're referring to?
You've got a little dam that was by Redco, right? And they called it the Unica Dam. And then there's the one that's down by the old Gilbert Knitting Mill. It's kind of, both of those have kind of fallen away, but that one is called the Horseshoe Dam. So those 2 areas would be capable of that. So something really interesting to think about. And I love the idea of being self-sustaining to a certain extent and returning to our roots, which water has always been our greatest asset. And, when you look at the Klondike compared to the Hinckley, we've got 3 times more water coming through there for Little Falls than Hinckley that provides water for Utica and Rome.
Okay.
So that's a big asset and certainly something that I'm looking at as revenue for the future.
It's good to have on the long-term list.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about economic development, job creation. I know you've got a couple of external committees that you've created with some helpful people on board, I believe. Any movement there? They coming up with anything for you? Any ideas, projects?
We have a lot of good things in the works, and I have a couple of advisory committees that help me that really look at the large scale, the 30,000 foot. What do we need to do? What do we need here? And they have ongoing work that I can't really share, but they are working on a development. They are working on bringing businesses into the city. One of the committee members was actually ended up investing in 5 properties on Main Street and looking to fill those properties with tenants. And one, she has a retail tenant that is already, I think, underway or getting there, and then looking at restaurants. So when I see that this committee is working with people who are property owners on Main Street to reinvest in the community, I love it. We know what we're getting. We know people who are very committed, and we know what they're capable of, and supporting them. So that certainly working with the real estate people on moving some of the properties, like the Snyder building that we were talking about, they do a good job with that and looking at what kind of restaurants we can bring in and approaching them and looking at hotels and you name it, whatever it happens to be. So, yes, it's very important. So there were 3 things when I came into the role that I wanted to work on. The first one was public safety, because at the time I was concerned about public safety with so many people that, when we had the issues of people coming through that were transients, that some were some dangerous activities and others were just, down on their luck. But we had a whole different crop of people coming through that I wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we can to protect the community that our citizens. And with the homeless situation, with the squatters breaking into places, people on vacation and they come home and the squatters have taken over their front porch and you're not allowed back into your house, and the legal ramifications that starts a whole process was unacceptable. So we did a lot with public safety and a whole new perspective of when I say, there are certain things, it's a mindset of not only protecting the community, but also preserving things that we have here. And they do a really good job. And there's a direct correlation with my connection with the police department and what they do, my connection with fire and EMS and what we do when we work collaboratively together. So that accomplished that. And then the second one was financial status of the city, which we know that's been a big, it's been the big elephant in the room, and in everything that I do, because it ties into, if we can't sustain ourselves, then we're in a real bad situation. And so we have to get there. And in order for us to grow and put the train back on the tracks, we have to have a financial foundation to work with. So that's what I'm working on, and that's ongoing. And the other was economic development. How can we transform this community by bringing in the right types of business? And we're still working on that. That because this last year has been so focused on the financial side, the advisory committee has done more work on that than I have personally. And one of the things that they did, is certainly bringing more attention to the city, was the Empire Bike Trail. We were designated as a bike town. And that goes into all the state's materials and marketing and people drawing attention to Little Falls. So come to Little Falls and spend time. And they had a tracker out there. The old one, I think it was 70 some thousand people that moved past Little Falls. So we're trying to do things to bring them in. With signage, we've got a lot of different projects, but a lot of that has been from volunteers and from people who have donated to the volunteer effort for signage and wayfinding signage and different things that were needed.
Okay. Tell me about more goals for 2025. Here we are.
2025, it's a year for me that is, we're looking at continuing to really stabilize and financially, and to so continue that path, but also to work whatever we can do with increasing the shared services. I've got some projects going, some interest in that area. I think that's going to be good. And I'm actually taking a more regional approach to that, where I'm inviting the community, other municipalities in to discuss what's really important for them. What can we do to help them out? And to be able to put some projects together. And I think that's going to help us in the long run. But it is still looking at what we can do to stabilize, what we can do to bring more businesses to our downtown, and to support the community, the businesses that we have.
Everything okay with Vets Park?
Vets Park is hanging in there. We were able to turn on some of the lighting last year. We'll see how we are with lighting this year. Yeah, we're looking forward to another season. And we had a lot of donations with the small parks, the Little League Park and others, where um, uh, donations came into those groups as well as to the city. One donation came in from one of our county legislators to pay for 2 years of permitting fees.
Cool.
So,
That's great.
and that came in very, very quickly in the whole ordeal. So, yeah, I think we're looking forward to a new season, and we'll see where we go from there.
What's the most rewarding part of being mayor?
Oh gosh, you know, I I've I just love solving problems, and I have plenty of problems to solve. That's for sure. But the thrill of really getting something done finally. I hate stagnation, and coming from startup world and the world that I had a career in, you make a decision and you move on it in 15 minutes. You're executing on it. Waiting 3 months to execute on something is just not acceptable. So when I can shorten the time and really move forward on things, when people call me and I'm able to come up with a solution for them quickly, that's very fulfilling. The other thing I love doing is getting out. We did a proclamation for Pam Munger the other
I saw
night,
that.
and and even for Anna Kazmersky, before she passed away, she hit 104. We did one for her too. Getting out in the public and really just enjoying chatting with people and being able to do that. I performed a wedding in the summertime last year, and that was really something that was wonderful.
Yeah.
So the fulfilling things are accomplishing things for me. And when I can check it off my box, like the 11 things that were on the comptroller report, that was a big win for me because we finally got it done. And I don't like, when I hear we can't or it's never been done before, that's just like fighting words to me. That's like, no, we're going to do it. We're going to figure a way. And when you actually have the opportunity to complete something like that, that's fulfilling.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
And congratulations to Pam Munger, by the way. She coached my daughter when my daughter
she
was in high
did.
school. So
Yeah.
I've seen her in action, and she's just terrific. She's a great asset for Little.
She had so many people watch and view the story on My Little Falls. It was like 50,000 at one point, and hundreds of people made comments. I mean, it's not just Pam and her students or a school thing. This is a community thing. And we're just so proud of her and her athletes and what they were able to accomplish. But yeah, she could go anywhere and coach, but she chooses to coach in Little Falls, and I love that.
It's terrific. So looking back at 2024, is there anything that you'd do differently? Any regrets?
No regrets.
No regrets?
I feel, looking back, I feel very fortunate that people saw the dilemma I was in and came out and helped me. I have had more people from the community too who have asked would like to help on committees, and they've never volunteered before. People that come in to apply for a job, and I'm looking at their resumes and I'm blown away that we're getting this level of talent. People really working together to help me. It's been phenomenal. I've been incredibly fortunate. The state helping me, the county helping me. Every call I make, I'm getting a response that, let's see what we can do. So the city of Little Falls, it's important to the state, it's important to the county. and it's important to us in our future. And what we're doing today with all the things that I've done in the past year and what needs to be done going forward, it's setting the stage for the next generation. I want kids to be able to grow up like I grew up. I want that advantage for them. I did not stay after high school. I moved on. But I'm hoping that there's someday that they won't have to move on, that the city will be vibrant enough with enough business and jobs and things that they can stay here their entire life and raise their family here. It's a generational thing that I think people who've been here their whole life, it's a pride that we take in our community that you don't see everywhere.
Yeah, let's hope that happens because we need those kids.
We do. We really do.
So as we wrap this up, give me some final comments on your year in office and as you look forward to the rest of your term. Final comments.
Oh, I'm excited about it, actually. Most people would probably want to crawl out of the space when they find out, like last year, that we had no money and we have a $2.8 million deficit and the pension plan didn't get paid for 2 years. The challenges were so steep, but I like a good challenge. Yeah, I wasn't sure that I needed one every single month of last year, but I'd like a good challenge. But I'm energized. I'm optimistic. I know we're going to get this done. I have no doubt in my mind we're going to be a much better community over the next few years with the things that we're doing today. So, I think that the city has such tremendous potential. We just have to have a bold vision and we have to look outside the box. And I'm doing that. And I hope people are patient with me because just know that every single hour of every day that I'm down there, I'm working for them.
That means a lot. I think people appreciate it. You
Yeah.
see the results, and I'm sure there'll be more results.
And they can stop by anytime and say hi, call me. I'm very approachable.
There you go. That's it. Well, thanks for coming in. I appreciate
Sure,
it.
my
This was
pleasure.
a very good update. I'd say that was a really comprehensive update from the mayor. Thank you for tuning in. See you next time.